devotees with books into the village, the interior villages. Like P.R.A. Prabhu, he was on the Radha Damodar bus. There were several of them. I don't know how many ultimately they had, but I saw a picture where there was like 5 or 6, Greyhound buses, and each bus had like, I don't know, 15 or 20 devotees on it. Usually a sannyasi was leading it, or I think P.R.A. said he was leading one of the buses for some time. And he was on the Radha Damodar party for 10 years. That is not easy. That is like a huge austerity. Even to be on a Radha Damodar bus for like a week or a month, because I could never have done it. Maybe for a week or a month, but he was on the party for 10 years, every day, and they would go all over the country to the interior villages of America, even to Iowa and Montana and Massachusetts and all over the place. They went everywhere. And Prabhupada was very proud of them. He talked about them frequently, and not only in Radha Damodar, but all over the world. At that time, in 1974, in America and Europe were still where most of the devotees had come from and were coming from. Of course, now it's everywhere. All of the devotees coming from everywhere. But at that time, it was still, he talked frequently about his European and American disciples, and he considered it important when he went back to India to preach. He had been unsuccessful preaching in India before 1965. He had tried there. I heard him talking about that on a lecture yesterday in the kitchen, and he said, I tried in India for many years to preach. I would go to a man, he had a few sons, and I'd say, just give me one son, and I'll make him a Brahmin. And the father, mother would say, what's the use of becoming a Brahmin? Or they were very practical. How are you going to make good money being a Brahmin? And of course, you can make money as a Brahmin, but it's not the reason to become. Anyway, Prabhupada was disappointed by his preaching efforts in India. He couldn't get anywhere. Because they felt like, Indians, rightly so, to some extent, they feel like, well, we know Krishna, we know about Krishna. But Prabhupada didn't, it's true, everyone in India knows Krishna to some extent, but it's not like there's nothing to learn. After all, Krishna preached to an Indian, Arjuna. Lord Chaitanya preached to Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami, Indians, and it's not like just to take birth in India is a great benediction, but it's not the be all and end all. There's still so much you have to learn about Krishna's philosophy. Anyway, so when Prabhupada brought some American disciples back to India to help him preach after a few years, and he was having festivals in Delhi and Mumbai, and he was having festivals, and the disciples made a poster and to put up around the streets. He said, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami with his foreign disciples will give this program in this square, that square in Mumbai. And Prabhupada saw the poster and he didn't like it. He said he didn't like it that they just said foreign disciples. He said he wanted them to say American and European disciples, because that the average Indians would be impressed. Oh, Bhakti Vedanta Swami has gone to America and Europe and made disciples, and they're his disciples. They're preaching. So Prabhupada he considered it important for his preaching back in India, when he brought them back to India. And he was right, of course, as usual. He was right. It was an aid to his spreading ISKCON Krishna consciousness in India also. So by chanting this Hare Krishna mantra and by engaging yourself in the devotional service, although it looks like karma, just like people say, these people are also collecting money. They're going to sell books and they are also eating. And simply because they are dancing and chanting Hare Krishna, they have become so great. Yes, this is the process. And actually they have become great. Although it looks like similar activities, that they are also using motor car, they are also using microphone and typewriter and dictaphone, airplane. So everything he is using, so how they have become so great or so advanced. This is the intelligence. Here it is said that karmanya karma yak pashet. Although they are acting just like ordinary human beings, they are using everything. They are also fighting for the land, for Krishna, and everything looks like that. But akarmani, that is akarma. They are not producing any result because it is being done for Krishna. This is the secret. So Prabhupada is presenting their argument. Why are they so great? They're making money. They're using the car. They're singing songs. They're dancing. We're doing all those things. So what makes them so good or so advanced? And Prabhupada, his answer was, yeah, they are great. It's not that the devotees should consider we should consider ourselves great. We're supposed to be becoming humble, lower than the straw in the street, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige. There's nothing lower. The only thing lower than the straw in the street is the dirt, and so that's pretty low. And that's what how we're supposed to think of ourselves. But from Krishna's point of view, from the logical or practical point of view, the devotees, we are great. The devotees are great, and not by our own strength. Not like we worked out for years and years and years and became great athletes or musicians or something. But we're great because we're sweeping the floor for Krishna. We're cooking for Krishna. We're not doing it for ourselves. So that is great. By definition, that's the definition of great. And there's no karma. Karmani akarma yat pashet. It looks like karma. It looks like we're acting like everyone else, but there's no karmic reaction for this. Not only is there no karmic reaction, it's like the vegetarian. It's not such a great thing to be a vegetarian. It's better than being a meat eater, but there's nothing advanced about being a vegetarian in and of itself. Prabhupada would always say the elephant is a vegetarian, the gorilla is a vegetarian, he's 10 times stronger than a human being. A pigeon is a vegetarian. There's nothing special about being a vegetarian in and of itself, but there's still karma. It's better, but there's so much karma. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that someone who prepares food only for their sense gratification verily only eats sin. And he doesn't say, but not if you're a vegetarian. He says anyone who prepares food for their own pleasure eats only sin. So the sin means that anything separate from Krishna. So I just read a little over here. We'll read to the end of this lecture. Karmani, akarma. Akarma means which does not have. I have already explained. So if you work the same thing, swakarmana, never mind, you are doing the Shudra's business or the Brahman's business, doesn't matter. Whether you are acting for Krishna, that is wanted. If you are acting for Krishna and you are not becoming entangled by the resultant action, pious or impious, it is above pious and impious. They are consideration of this material platform. In the spiritual platform, there is no such thing, absolute. Whatever you're doing, it is all good, all spiritual. That is called absolute. In the absolute, there is no such distinction. This is pious, this is impious. Everything is spiritual. So we have to act like that. If you act spiritually for satisfying Krishna, varnashrama vibhagasha sunisthitasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. If you can satisfy Krishna by your activities, it doesn't matter whether it is Sudra activity or Brahman activity. But the aim is whether you are satisfying Krishna. Then it is akarma. Just like in this institution. Somebody is washing the dishes and somebody is taking care of dressing the deity. It does not mean that one is taking care of dressing the deity, he is higher than the man who is washing the dishes. No, they are not karma. By washing dishes, he is executing devotional service. And by dressing the deity, he is also executing. Real point is devotional service. That is called akarma. Thank you very much. Tomorrow starts another one. It's an important point, very simple point, very easy to understand, but something that we have to remind ourselves and others about in a normal course of preaching, that there's no higher or lower service in Krishna consciousness. Like in the material world, if someone is sweeping the floor, washing pots, he's considered low. So you're a pot washer, you're a janitor, well, that's nice, but you have a job, at least, but it's looked down upon. If you're a PhD, if you're some kind of doctor, or a PhD, or a college teacher, or if you're a famous musician, or something, then it's, so impressive. And but in Krishna consciousness, there's no higher or lower. We every year on the disappearance day of Jayananda, we read the stories of him. Where there's one story where the new boy came to the temple, and they sent him, or he was out talking to Jayananda, Prabhu, and Jayananda, all you could see of him was his legs and his feet, because he was underneath a car, working on a car, and he was preaching from underneath the car. And he was taking out the trash, and he was doing anything. Of course, he was always also the temple president, and he was also supporting the temple, and if necessary, I'm sure there were times when he was worshiping the deities and doing. That's the point. A devotee can do anything for Krishna. It's not like, well, I'm a Brahmin, I can't sweep the floor, or I'm a Shudra, I can't worship the deities. Any devotee, there are qualifications you have to meet. The qualifications for dressing the deities are more demanding than for sweeping a floor. Anyone can come on the first day and sweep the floor, but you can't go on the altar the first day and do deity service. So there are different qualifications, but there's no distinction that one service is higher than another. Abdallah?
Taking notes.
taking notes. Okay. Sometimes people say they're taking notes, but they're not. But I believe you. One time these two girls were here, two Indian girls were here, and I was giving class, and they had their phones out. And I know they weren't taking notes, but I asked them what they were doing, and they said, "I'm taking notes on your class."
They were smart.
Yeah, as conditioned souls, we're really good about lying, cheating. We're expert at that. Okay, so Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 And they got offended. Okay. Canto 7, chapter 3, verse number 22.
Really?
Yeah. 21 was yesterday. Shri Narada Uvacha.
Shri Narada Uvacha.
Vityukvari Bhavodeva. Vakshitan Janam Pipilikai.
Bhakshitangan Pipilikai.
Kamandalu Jalena Ukshay.
Kamandalu Jalena Ukshay.
Divyena Mukha Radhasa.
Divyena Mugaradasha.
Shri Narada Uvacha.
Shri Narada Uvacha.
Ityukvadi Bhavodevo.
Iti Ukvadi Bhavodevo.
Vakshitangam Pipilikai.
Bhakshitangam Pipilikai.
Kamandalu Jalena Ukshay.
Kamandalu Jalena Ukshay.
Divyena Mugaradhasa.
Divyena Mugaradasha.
Shri Narada Uvacha.
Shri Radha Narada Uvacha.
Ityukvadi Bhavodevo.
Iti Ukvadi Bhavodevo.
Vakshitangam Pipilikai.
Bhakshitangam Pipilikai.
Kamandalu Jalena Ukshay.
Kamandalu Jalena Ukshay.
Divyena Mugaradhasa.
Divyena Mugaradasha.
Where is chant? Ashwini?
Oh.
Chant? Anyone else? And then we
Shri
go
Narada.
Go ahead.
Shri Narada Uvacha.
Ityukadi Bhavodevo. Vakshitangam Pipilikai. Kamandalu Jalena Ukshay. Divyena Mugaradhasa. Shri Narada Uvacha. Ityukvadi Bhavodevo. Vakshitangam Pipilikai. Kamandalu Jalena Ukshay. Divyena Mugaradhasa. Shri Narada Uvacha. Ityukvadi Bhavodevo. Vakshitangam Pipilikai. Kamandalu Jalena Ukshay. Divyena Mugaradhasa.
Iti Uktavadi Bhavodevo.
Ityukvadi Bhavodevo.
Bhaksitangam pipilikai
Vakshitangam Pilikai
Kamandalu jale naukshad
Kamandalo Jale Nakshad
Divye namo garadhasa
Divye Namagadasa
Iti Vadi Babudevo
Ityukadi Bhavodevo
Vaksitangam Pipilakai
Vakshitangam Pilikai
Kamandalo Jaleksa
Kamandalo Jale Nakshad
Divya Namo Garadasa
Divye Namagadasa Shri Narada Uvacha Shri Narada Muni said Iti thus Uttva say Adibhava Lord Brahma the original creature within this universe Deva the principal demigod Pakshita Angam Hiranyakashipu's body which had been almost completely eaten Pipilikai by the ants Kamandalu from the special water pot in the hands of Lord Brahma Chalena by water Okshat sprinkled Divina which was spiritual not ordinary Amoga without fail Radhasa whose power Translation Sri Narada Muni continued after speaking these words to Hiranyakashipu, Lord Brahma, the original being of this universe, who is extremely powerful, sprinkled transcendental, infallible spiritual water from his kamandalu upon Hiranyakashipu's body, which had been eaten away by ants and moths. Thus he enlivened Hiranyakashipu. Repeat after me. Sri Narada Muni continues. After speaking these words to Hiranyakashipu, Lord Brahma, the original being of this universe, who is extremely powerful, sprinkled transcendental, infallible spiritual water from his kamandalu upon Hiranyakashipu's body, which had been eaten away by ants and moths. Thus he enlivened Hiranyakashipu. Prabhupada's purport. Lord Brahma is the first created being within this universe and is empowered by the Supreme Lord to create. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavye. The Adi Deva or Adi Kavi, the first living creature, was personally taught by the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the heart. There was no one to teach him, but since the Lord is situated within Brahma's heart, Brahma was educated by the Lord himself. Lord Brahma, being especially empowered, is infallible in doing whatever he wants. This is the meaning of Amoga Radhasa. He desired to restore Hiranyakashipu's original body, and therefore by sprinkling transcendental water from his water pot, he immediately did so. Om began to Anandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurvan Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this is, so up until this time, Lord Brahma is talking to Hiranyakashipu, and Hiranyakashipu is still just a skeleton. So you can imagine going up, talking to this skeleton, and the skeleton's talking, answering. But the skeleton is saying, I want to be immortal. Anyway, I don't think anybody was laughing back then. It was only those two anyway. So. But yeah, so and then he sprinkled water on him, and then he restored his body. But Lord Brahma is the first created being within this universe, and is empowered by the Supreme Lord to create. So we hear, and generally, of course, one of the primary things that we always hear about Lord Brahma is that he's Adikavi, he's the creator, the sub-creator of the universe, the secondary creator of the universe. Of course, Krishna is the creator of everything. And so that's what we usually hear. And then along with that, of course, mostly what we hear about Lord Brahma is from the Krishna book. And he stole the calves from cows, and the boys from Krishna, and locked them, put them in a cave asleep for a year. We had that whole pastime, Brahma Vimohana Lila, and other pastimes of like in the beginning, the demigods, they approached Lord Brahma, and with Lord Brahma they went to the shore of the ocean of milk, or they approached Bhumi, and then they prayed to Lord Brahma, and then they prayed to Lord Vishnu. He prayed to Lord Vishnu. So mostly what we know about Lord Brahma we get from the Krishna book in the form of pastimes. Or like Indra, Lord Indra. And Lord Indra, mostly what we learn about him is from pastimes, and usually he's getting into trouble. But he's the king of heaven, and is the supreme. He's the highest demigod. Of course, Lord Brahma is the super highest demigod, but Indra is the king of the demigods. So we hear stories about them, and we could think, or sometimes we forget, to be the secondary, to be the creator, or just say creator of the universe that's a really big thing. You don't just pastimes are true, and we put actually more stress on the pastimes because there are pastimes involved with Krishna. But to be the creator of the universe, you can take we think of somebody who's very intelligent on this planet, like Einstein, or some genius that we've heard about, or we may have read some books by them or something, and we think, oh, this is a very, very, very intelligent person, and by ordinary standards, they are more intelligent than the average person in the material on this planet. But it's Kali Yuga. To be the most intelligent person on a planet in Kali Yuga is not a big claim to fame. We are impressed, and it's a little impressive, but it's not some big deal, actually. And by any standard, even of previous yugas, in Dwapara Yuga, the reason Vyasadeva had to write down the scriptures was because nobody could remember them anymore in Kali Yuga. So everything is decreased. But Lord Brahma, who can imagine the kind of intelligence that he had? We can't imagine it. Who can imagine the kind of intelligence? Scientists here, they study the structure of a molecule or genes, or they try to figure out a unified theory of physics for how everything in the universe works, or so many things. They're working on it. When Sariputta was here, he is one of the original members of the Bhaktivedanta Institute, and he used to give class at this Bhagavatam. I've told this before, but he said he was relating how one scientist got a Nobel Prize in biology, let's say biology, and the thing he got the Nobel Prize for was, I'm quoting Sariputta now, I've never investigated this, but I don't think he would make things up or lie or anything. But he said that this scientist, Nobel Prize is a big deal. And he said he got the prize for analyzing the structure of the armpit of some insect. That's what he said. And anyway, so that's the nature of the material study. You can study any aspect of the material world down to the tiniest degree for your whole life, for many lives. You can study any tiny aspect or any large aspect. Anyway, they're all tiny. And you can never come to the end or fully understand even an atom, even the armpit of an insect. And but so who can imagine Lord Brahma? Lord Brahma's intelligence. He knows, he understands so much. He's for intents and purposes. He's God. And it's like he said that all he had to do was sprinkle Hiranyakashipu with water, spiritual water, from his kamandalu, and immediately he was restored. His body was very beautiful. You see pictures of Hiranyakashipu. He's big, strong demon, and that just by sprinkling a few drops of water. So that Lord Brahma, we should never, the pastimes of Krishna are the most important, but we shouldn't forget that aspect of Lord Brahma or Lord Indra. Yes, he got into trouble with Krishna and other people in other pastimes, but he's the king of heaven. It's not a small thing. Anyway, I'll just tell, in relationship to intelligence, I'll tell one essay I read recently up at Satsvarup Maharaj's this past weekend, and it's an essay from Schopenhauer, this famous German, I guess German philosopher. What? Danish philosopher.
No, he's German. Sorry.
Anyway, European. And he is well known and respected as an intelligent man, and very thoughtful and analytical. And so this was a short thing, it was an analogy. So he wrote in this analogy, there was the smartest man in the world. He was so smart. He was smarter than anybody else. And he figured things out and thoughts that nobody else could think. Because it's not written from the Krishna conscious point of view, it's written from the mundane point of view. So he's like the most intelligent person, and he is so deep and so analytical, so philosophical. And he wrote a book, and this book became so well known all over the world that it was accepted as gospel, or I don't know, transcendent, but everyone recognized that this person's intelligence is so great. And his book was read everywhere and studied, and anyway, then he fell into some doubt as to some of his conclusions and what the actual nature of the world was, and he fell into some doubt, and he became very troubled by all his doubts. He wondered, he questioned everything he had thought before and everything he had written before, and he went to this one religious man who didn't know him and didn't know who he was and his reputation. And he asked him if he could help him analyze his trouble, his disturbance of his mind. And he tried for a while, talks back and forth. And then the religious man gave him a book to solve his problem, and it was his book. And that's how the analogy, that's how it ends. And he's like, and he doesn't exactly say it, but you know, the implication is that I'm disturbed in my mind, I want answers, and they gave me my own book. And so he didn't get anywhere. But anyway, I thought that was good, because that's or useful, because that's the position he was like the most intelligent man, and he ends up in the same quandary he started in, facing the same problems, the same dichotomy, the same trouble mind that he was in the beginning, because and the upshot is, from the Krishna conscious point of view, because he didn't approach the higher authority of the Vedas. He didn't have a guru. He didn't have a spiritual master in disciplic succession who could cut through all the nonsense. And like Arjuna was in a quandary in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, for the sake of Krishna presenting the Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna, and his arguments were good. His arguments were good arguments. There was a lot to be said for the points that Arjuna was making from the spiritual point of view, from the Vedic point of view. But Krishna cut through it all, and he said, well, speaking learned words, you're lamenting, you're speaking like a fool. You think you're so smart, and but actually you're speaking like a fool. And that's the position of every disciple. That's the position of everyone in the material world. Of course, no one knows it. Even Lord Chaitanya said that to the Prakashananda Saraswati and his disciples. Prakashananda Saraswati said, "You're chanting and dancing in Bhakti Yoga like a sentimentalist," and that's the opinion, the hard formed opinion of the impersonalists, is that they think that the absolute ultimately there's no personality. That's what it means when it says impersonal. Just a side note on that. We oftentimes, as neophyte devotees, because we have so many faults, we're coming from a background, we're so faulty, and we still have many faults, and so we don't deal with each other properly often. And one disciple asked Prabhupada about that one time, and about how, irritated behavior between two of his disciples, and he asked, and he speaking improperly, and then he said, "Is this because we're impersonal?" And Prabhupada said, "No, it's because you're persons. It's because you're personal. Oftentimes but the problem is we're conditioned persons. So it's like we misuse the term impersonal. Oftentimes we think, oh, he didn't deal with me properly. He's so impersonal. He's not impersonal. He's personal, but in a contaminated material way. Impersonal means that, it literally means, I think that you're not a person, and you think that I'm not a person. Anyway, that's just a side note, is that we often misuse the term impersonal, that it's person. Anyway, that's something I've been thinking about recently. But anyway, the impersonalists, they don't only think, they're 100% convinced, they know for a fact in their minds that the absolute is impersonal. There's no personal Krishna, there's no personal you, there's no personal me. Although in the present they use those terms, or they may even do some deity worship or have a guru, but they think that, well, when I'm self-realized, there's no guru anymore, because I'm as good as I am guru, I'm God, there's no... Anyway, that's their firm conviction. And they think, and Prakashananda Saraswati said to Lord Chaitanya, he said, you're dancing, and they think that the devotees are like children. They can't do anything else, so let them sing and dance. That's good for them. It's good for them, but we're very intelligent. So we can study, we can read the Vedanta Sutra, we can study, we can debate philosophically, we can come to the proper conclusion. But they're not so intelligent, so let them sing and dance. So, and he said to Lord Chaitanya, he said, you're a sannyasi, why are you studying the Vedanta? I said, that's what sannyasi is supposed to do. And why are you singing and dancing like a sentimentalist, like a child, he was saying. And Lord Chaitanya told him, and Lord Chaitanya is not a fool, he is Krishna. But he said, my spiritual master considered me a fool, and therefore, he said that you should just chant this mantra, this Hare Krishna mantra. And so I do that. So, of course, Lord Chaitanya is not a fool, but Prabhupada says that that's the perfect, that's how a good disciple not only presents himself. It's not an artificial thing that we go to a spiritual master and we say, oh, Swami, Guru Dev, I'm so fallen, I'm such a fool. But we don't think we're a fool in our heart. We think, well, I have to present myself like this, this is what you do. But actually, I'm pretty smart. And if you think like that, your spiritual master will know it. He'll know that you're thinking like that. Believe me. Anyway, so Lord Chaitanya Prabhupada said that's the perfect way. You think we're fools. We present ourselves before a spiritual master because we're fools. If we weren't fools, we wouldn't be in this material world. I'm so smart.